We mark the beginning of day 2 of our Leadership Summit 3.0, Leadership Next for Atmanirbhar Bharat. The Leadership Summit is an important marquee event at IIM Jammu that resonates with its vision of developing leadership and entrepreneurship. The idea is to bring together visionaries from industry, government, and other walks of life to offer valuable ideas to support economic growth of our country through industrial transformation and promotion of leadership. I, Shrutika Joshi,
And I, Karan Chawla, are your host for today, and we are set about for today's discussion. After a successful day one of Leadership Summit 3.0, leaders from different genres of life spoke about their triumphant journey and the way ahead. We covered a wide range of topics, including emerging opportunities in the realm of digitalization, disruptive innovation, gig economy, and the future of a self reliant domestic workforce. Mr. Ramesh Kailasam sir helped us to bring to light a panel, Gig Economy, Unlocking the Potential of an Independent Indian Workforce. He reflected upon the true meaning of gig economy and how it has become relevant in recent years. Continuing where we left off yesterday, we are more enthusiastic today as we reopen the forum with a fresh light of visionary speakers for the panel. We welcome amongst ourselves our guest speakers for today. First, we have Ms. Papia Banerjee with us. Ms. Banerjee is a co-founder of Uncube and a board of advisor to Digital. She has a global experience of working with CEOs and executive teams across industries for more than 20 years and is passionate about developing leaders and transforming organizations for the new world of work. Alongside this insight, she also possesses a deep interest in education and livelihood, bringing in change by creating platforms for collaboration and sustainability.
we have with us another esteemed speaker for the panel discussion, Mr. Kailash Kulkarni, CEO, L&T Mutual Funds. In his professional career of 31 plus years, he has also served as the head of sales at the Kotak Mahindra Asset Management Company, VP at JM Financial Group, sales manager at Aisha Motor Company, and various others. He's a leader with excellent communication and people skills, a team player, and a deep understanding of market realities. He's a high energy person with great work discipline and commitment. We present the virtual stage to you, sir, and ma'am. Ma'am,
Yeah.
welcome to the virtual stage.
I hope we are audible, ma'am. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Should we start? Should we start?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm really delighted to be here today. I'm talking to all of you, and thank you so much for this opportunity because it really energizes me whenever we are having a conversation with so many students, the future leaders for tomorrow. And today, as the team introduced, we are actually going to talk more and more about the what is it that gig economy actually holds for us. So let me, go back a bit and look at what is happening in last 24 months. If we actually look at it, the world of work has experienced the massive shift. I think in last few decades, it is the biggest shift that we have seen in the world of work, right? And when we talk about this shifts, there is remote working that most of us experienced for the first time when it happened in March 2020. There is this whole gig workers that is coming up and the gig economy that is coming up. Then the technology becoming the core of every industry, irrespective of which industry or which area that you are in. And also a very big shift in the mindset of the working class, of the employees, with their expectations completely changing. Let me dive a little bit deeper into the trends as we see it, right? So, but first big shift that I think came in were the pandemic actually induced or pushed us to consider a remote working option to be a full-time option. Before that, remote working was existing. It is not the first time that industry has seen remote working, but it was in a very, very small pockets, and very dispersed. First time when industry was pushed to look into remote working was actually March 2020. And in the March 2020, we found that very quickly the organizations adopted for remote working. And what does it mean? Actually, it gave all of the employees experience the joy of working from home, right? The joy from working from home was made because we had first time we were working and having good time with our family and the loved ones. There was a huge saving in the travel time because there was no travel required. We also got an opportunity to, really spend some time, plan our work in a manner that we have time to do things that we really cared for, right? So some of us started investing in developing new skills. Some of us started really going back to the hobbies that we had. Some of us really, contributed in looking at how do we build the network that is coming in, right? We also saw a huge transition where people from metros or working in metros actually migrated to their hometowns because they could now work from their home and have access to all the information and manage. That also meant that spending time with extended family, spending time with communities. And during the tough time of pandemic, that actually came into a big help, right? So remote working for last almost 24 months became corporate India's one of the biggest realities, right, that we experienced. And the best experience of remote was, or the best achievement of remote was, that when we look at it, there was no loss of productivity. So it actually made a strong case for continuity. And even when people keep on calling and saying that, okay, we will come back, the organizations are now talking of hybrid. They are not talking about completely going back to what we considered as a pre-pandemic normal, right? So there is a change in the way we look at work, we think about work, and we are looking at driving the engagements because of the remote. The second big trend that I see is actually in the form of gig workers, right? Across the world, there is an exponential growth on the number of people actually employed in the gig working, right? And the best part is when we talk about the gig workers, most of us talk about some of the new business models, right, that have emerged. And there is a tendency to think about gig working being more about what we see in Amazons of the world, Zomatos of the world, or Flipkart or delivery or Zappos. So when we are talking about these organizations, their business model is very much dependent on the gig workers or flexible workers. But with the shift in employees asking for more and more flexibility, there is an opportunity that the organizations now have to encash that flexibility and also design internal systems for flexibility. So for example, earlier, the experts that will be required, which cannot be hired because of their the cost that they bring in. So we couldn't really afford a lot of experts coming on the board, right? But now with the gig opportunities, it is possible to get those experts on a project basis or on a task basis or for a limited time spent in the organization. So that opens up the whole opportunity or vista for talent fulfillment through gig economy, right? Then we also see that there were people who were not accessible. So when we are looking at a hiring, we were geographically very, very bound, right? We have to look for people coming into that city so that they can come to offices and work. But now that requirement is not there because if everybody is virtually logging in, it doesn't really make a difference where they are logging in from. So the whole case for gig workforce has become stronger and stronger over the period of time. And the flexibility that it provides, it is becoming the key to the talent strategy of most of the organization. As I said, gig workforce actually is not new for the corporate world, and more so for corporate India. We always have been looking at contract employees to maintain that kind of a flexibility in the workplaces, because you will have up and down of the demand of the workforce that you require. So we always had contract workforce. Now from contract, it is moving into gig, because then it is a direct employment and it gives a more opportunity of flexibility that we have in hand. So gig is going to be a crucial part of the talent strategy of most of the industry that we know of. And as I said, Kailash is sitting here, he will talk about the gig workforce in the financial sector. Financial sector has been using it for very, very long, but across the sector, they have been employed in some form or the other. The big change that we see now is the gig employment, even at a very senior level positions, and the whole variation from what we call as a white or a gray collar worker to the highest strategic to technology consultant. So there is a whole move that is happening in terms of when we look at the gig employment. The third largest shift, I would say, is a very positive shift, although during the time of pandemic, most of us kept on thinking about a negative, but surprisingly, the biggest shift that is happening is the growth that the industry is experiencing. It's almost a phenomenal growth that the last year industry has experienced. And if you look at India per se, right, our startup ecosystem is expanding at a rate faster than ever before, right? If you look at the fintech itself, there are 2,100 new fintechs which have come in last couple of years. So there is a very, very high booming industry, and even the traditional sector, all the IT sector is growing, right? Even in financial sectors, we see a massive expansion that is happening. So almost all the sectors, there is a positive news of a growth. But what does that growth mean? That growth means that we are finding it difficult to meet the demand, because with the growth, the demand for talent is increasing. And it is the biggest gap. When we look at some of the studies, they are talking about the talent demand and supply gap is the highest now, which is quite an irony, because it is also the highest unemployment rate. But at the same time, we don't have talent that is required by the industry or the kind of a fulfillment. So when we are talking about demand and supply gap of a talent, so organizations will find it very difficult to fulfill all their full-time employment requirement. So there will be a very high dependency on what we call as a gig workforce or consultants or freelancers, whichever name that you can give, but there is a requirement for freelancers that is coming in and it is building, right? We know so many freelancing websites that have come in, I think 79, 80 of them, where our freelancers can register and provide the services, because there is that kind of a requirement. So there is a shift in the way we think about employment, and there is a shift in the way people are looking at engaging the workforce, right? And there is a shift in employee expectations also. If you look at even the job that I do, I don't have a job, I run a consulting firm, right? And what happens to this consulting firm? We are engaged by organizations to do some projects around future of work. It can be leadership, it can be organization and development. We also, if you look at in some work, are actually working as a gig workforce. There is a unique project that requires unique skills, which the organization need not employ. They don't need a full-time employee to do those kind of projects. So what they come in and they look for consultants like us to get those work done. So in the way, we are also part of the gig workforce. Our levels of engagement are different, our ways of engagement are different, but that is how it comes in. And what we see is again in the full range and technical technology experts, strategy experts, experts in actuary, investment banking. Almost all these are now opening for with the gig, which were earlier just impossible because the mindset of getting them into employment in the gig was not available, right? And the biggest shift, which I feel has happened, and we see the results, is the change in the way employees perceive work to be, our expectations from work, right? There is a big change. Earlier we would, so first one is about the effort reward ratio, right? So earlier we will be thinking about which organization I'm working for, what is the social standing of the job, how do I really talk about the employment brand. But the shift now is that if I'm putting in this kind of an effort, what is the result or what is the reward that I am getting in? Right? There is no connectivity with the brand of the organization or a diminishing connectivity with the larger brand of the organization or kind of a brand. So that's the first shift that we are seeing in employees. The second shift that we see is it has been rising over the period of time, but I think it got a clear boost during pandemic, is the risk-taking appetite for employees. When we talk about risk-taking appetite, it basically means that we are now okay to work for startups, or we are now okay to work for organizations who do not have a proven name. We are okay to work with the organizations which are yet to test the success or create any image, right? Because we are okay to take a risk, thinking that it will give us the better returns in some time. Okay. The third shift that we see in the employee's mind is, earlier we used to look at careers as marathons, right? It will be a long-term career people will do. But now it is almost becoming like a sprint. It is a small sprint that people want to run. So it is almost like a 1 year, 2 year, and doing different kind of roles, different kind of projects, and then seeing that how it is really evolving over the period of time. So with with that kind of a shift that is coming in, somewhere I feel, or what we are finding, the entrepreneurial DNA is really taking more shape over the period of time. And if you look at most of the skills that we are talking about over here, whether we are talking about risk-taking appetite, whether we are talking about reward effort, whether we are talking about people really wanting to test success at a very short span of time, all that actually come, and people actually taking a plunge into entrepreneurial journey very early. That's a like 2 years out of campus. Even within the campus, we find that students are now opting for saying that we want to be an entrepreneur. So that's the shift that we see. So all these 4 shifts that we talked about, first one was remote. Second, then we talked about how gig economy or the gig workforce is coming into play. Third, we spoke about how the growth and expansion is fueling more of a gig economy that is coming in. And fourth is the changing expectations that we see coming from employees. So all these 4, if we have to look at, what is it that we need to do? I think Indian corporate world or the Indian industry has to go through a massive change in the way they have been thinking about the work itself. Because unless they think that what does the work mean, it will become impossible to define the rules of engagement, new rules of engagement, and how people work, the ways of working. So that is something that has started in few places, but I think we have a long journey over there to adapt the Indian industry on how to really make things work for the future. The second piece, I think, is coming a lot on the government and lawmakers. Because if we look at our all the industrial laws that are available are very old generation or a traditional kind of laws, which do not really help us. If I have to apply Contract Labor Act on the gig, it will become very difficult. right? Because the whole business model is gig. So it is quite difficult to look at how do we actually work within the defined current law and or situation or current acts that are there for the employment acts. So that needs to be completely reviewed and revamped if we have to really move on to the gig economy. And the third piece, which is most important, I would say, is to look at really education system. We have an education system which almost is like uh, pardon my word, but it is like a factory production of doctors, factory production of engineers, factory productions of, like MBAs. But now what is a big shift happening is a skill required to do that job. So, and it is the job is not fixed. So there is a movement, there is a complete mindset shift that we require where we are talking from job to work. What kind of work I will do rather than what kind of a job that I will be employed. So I will pause over here and, I will request Kailas to take over and then we will come back for more conversation. Over to you, Kailas.
Thank you, Papya. I hope I'm heard properly in terms of audio. Firstly, thanks a lot to IIM Jammu, younger set of people, and we get questions. It refreshes us and helps our minds, and we stay young. When I was your age, possibly, life was very simple for us. We had exactly 4 or 5 professions that we could think of. We could either become engineers, doctors. You did BCom and did something in accountancy and joined a company. You did law and became a lawyer or joined something. And few of the more ambitious people at that point of time also ventured into something called an MBA, because they were possibly, I don't know, 1/100th of the number of colleges of MBA that were there at that point in time. And today when I talk to people, some people want to be hairstylists, some people want to be tattoo artists, some people want to be home chefs, some people want to be travel bloggers. You rarely get somebody saying, I want to be an engineer, doctor, or something like that, So what Papya laid out was a brilliant groundwork in terms of how the times are changing and the availability of the kind of roles that one can fulfill is just changed the whole landscape of how we have to look at when we are working in corporates. So today, if I expect the people who join my organization to be there in the next 15 years, I would only be kidding myself. Unless and until we don't give them some kind of, is the network gone bad?
We can hear you, Kailas.
Okay, sorry. So unless and until we don't give them some kind of freedom, some kind of flexibility and creativity within their own environment to perform, and they are all looking at upskilling themselves within 2 years' time. And one of the common things that I hear many of the youngsters talk about is, I want to retire at 40 and just enjoy my life and travel the world, which means that your earning lifespan is going to come down, which means, like Papya said, you need to have some way of ensuring continuity in earning even after you kind of leave a full-time job and get into what is traditionally known as a gig world, which means you're there as a person with a certain level of expertise and experience, helping some other people improve their life. So you may be an ace photographer and you decide to help other people in doing great photography. And you see, I'm purposely taking examples which are non-corporate, so to say, the traditional corporate, because that's how youngsters think nowadays. And that's a very refreshing way of looking at things. So when corporates like us, even when we have to talk to our audience, which is the next generation, we can't have traditional communication, which is there. We need communication which will connect with the next generation. So if I start talking to you about boring theories and Michael Kotler, on which we were brought up in our MBA days, you may not really like it, but you'd want to hear stories about young entrepreneurs who have really set out a path of their own. And that's something so refreshing for all of us. People always wonder whether financial services, because whenever you talk of gig economy, you do talk of the Zomato, Flipkarts of the world. And really, people wonder what's there in financial services, and is financial services something where can absorb gig workers? And let me tell you, it's astounding the amount of people we already employ. So let me start right at the bottom of the pyramid, because many a times we don't realize that there are so many people at the bottom of the pyramid who are doing phenomenal work in terms of being individual, doing something on their own. So at L&T Financial Services, we have a program wherein we employ women who are based in the rural areas. And when I say rural, they're not even at district level. They are at the taluka level, at the village level, really, really remote places. We teach them how they can use the mobile phone to do digital transactions, how to receive money, how to send money, how to pay your utility bill, how to make a premium payment for your insurance, crop insurance, etc., etc. Everything can be done online today. But they are digitally naive. They don't really know. And we train these people and we call them digital sakhis. And these women then go into the villages and actually help talk to a group of women, empower them, and you look at the change that it had bring at the village level. The same lady who was a homemaker, who was dependent entirely on the male member of the family to do financial transactions, today is saying, no, this is a damn good initiative. I can now take care of doing some of the work that my husband or my brother or my father was doing. So they feel empowered. And these are individual jobs. These are not permanent jobs which are there. And this is a growing breed of people who want to learn. So if we think that, this whole concept of digital transactions is only for urban India, we are grossly mistaken. It's not just for the second tier and third tier cities, but the proliferation, thanks to UPI, which is there, is today going down to even the remotest of remote villages in town. And I'm sure all of you would have seen that WhatsApp humor wherein this man is having this uh, cow he's taking, and he goes door to door and people give money to him. And he has actually a GPay uh, scanner between the horns of the cow. So we have seen that, right? And that's not okay. That could be humor, but these are things which are actually changing in India. So what's wonderful to note is that whether you go right to the bottom of the pyramid or you go right to the top of the pyramid, which is really talking about people who've done 20, 30 years of career, made a mark for themselves, and they are now having an expertise in a particular function, they are actually lending this as an advisory or as, sitting on boards of companies and helping others uh, manage their growth, manage their trajectories in terms of what they plan to do, etc. So when we talk of individuals who want to set out a career on their own, we are talking across a length and breadth of financial services. And I come from the mutual fund world, but if we take insurance, today LIC alone has more than 14 lakh, 1.4 million individual agents, what we call them. I don't like to call them agents. I think that's a very derogatory word. I think they are advisors. They help you understand what you should do in your financial planning, because insurance is an integral part of financial planning. And in mutual funds, we have another, a couple of lakh people across the various fund houses who are giving the similar kind of service. And if you include the relationship managers who work in banks, although they are doing traditional jobs, what we are seeing out there is that they are also leaving their jobs after 5, 7, 10 years, after having gained the expertise and the knowledge, and setting out their own boutique firms, helping clients manage their money. So we are seeing that across assets, whether it is loans business. So people offering home loans, people offering personal loans, people offering education loans. You got a whole gamut of people who are now setting out to say that, okay, I'll work in a company, I'll develop the expertise, I'll learn a lot, and then I'll want to do something on my own, because being one's boss is quite attractive to many people, rather than work for somebody else and get hollered and shouted for various different reasons, sometimes even when it's not your fault. So, it's quite an interesting change that is there. So let me just uh, park my thoughts here for a minute and talk about the mutual fund world, because that's where I come from. And I can share with you some very interesting stories. We have people, and my stories all will relate to small town India, because, somewhere down the line, people who come from smaller towns and cities have a tendency to believe that no, नौकरी ही करनी चाहिए, uh, वो तो उसके सिवा कुछ नहीं कर सकते, because that's a steady course of income that is there to the family, and they have gone through hardships. Not every one of us are privileged to come from an affluent class. Many of us have seen our parents struggle. Money is important, so it's always good to go to a safer place. Government job is the best, because नौकरी से निकाले भी नहीं जाते हैं, and पैसे भी हर महीने मिल जाते हैं. But a lot of these thought processes are saying that, okay, once I learn, can I really afford to do something on my own, which can then make it very lucrative for me once I cross the age of 40, 50? And it's like a kind of pension income which keeps coming in. And that's exactly what mutual fund industry is able to give. We call them mutual fund distributors or investment advisors. What happens is that you need to learn about the product, you need to learn about our economy. It keeps you fresh. So today morning, if I get up and I don't read the newspaper about what's happening in the world, I'm actually decaying. I need to keep abreast of what's happening. So financial services industry helps you keep absolutely, what do you say, spot on in terms of what's happening today. And you can't say that, okay, I'm going to take a break 15 days. I will not know what's happened in the stock markets or in the bond markets or in the oil market or in the currency market, and I'll be fine. I can just go on the 16th day and talk to my clients with equal expertise. It does not happen. So one, it keeps you active, it keeps you alert, it keeps you young. So these are very, very important parts of when you are independent in the financial services world. And second, it helps you start generating income, not just for today and tomorrow, but for a lifetime. Because when you go and address somebody and you're saying that I'm going to help you plan for your retirement, which is going to be 30, 40, 50 years, the way the commissions or the revenue is structured is that so long as the money remains with a fund house or an asset management company, there is something which keeps going to the person who has recommended it for life. So, that's something which is so interesting, because what I can see is that there are many people who, after the age of 40, will have challenges, because, after 40, you kind of become jobs, which means that a majority of us may struggle to change jobs or have something being done different after you grow a certain age. And it is these kind of initiatives that you have done at a younger age that will help you ensure that the incomes continue to be and you can live the life you want. So, one of my friends who was in our financial services world, and his passion was to go to the jungle safaris and see the tigers. And when he turned 42, he just quit his job in the mutual fund industry. He was head of sales for one of the mutual funds, and he started a company called Jungle Safaris. So that's what he did. And today he specializes in tiger safaris across the country. So it's following your passion. When you follow your passion, what happens? You're very happy. Every day you get up, it's not going to a tedious job or a boring boss or a similar kind of a profile that you have been doing for the last 5 years. It is keeping you young. It is keeping you refreshed. Yeah. And you have a joy that you find, which gives you that extra gear that you need to do well in life. So I personally believe that, when you need to start looking at projects or you need to start looking at individual employment. And I think Papia said that, the entrepreneurial spirit is increasing. I think it's not day by day, it's literally hour by hour today. Yeah, that people are wanting to do much more. It's something very fascinating. And you may start by working in a company, which may come to your campus, or you may take a job on your own. But during that course of the 4 or 5 years that you're there with that company, you learn a lot, and that helps you decide what are you going to do in future. The only two things very, very important, and I'm not going to belittle that, is that the only recipe for hard work, whether you're working in a company, for success, when you're working for a company or you're working on your own, is that you need to be extremely diligent in the work you do, which means you need to work really hard. And number two, you need to keep learning and unlearning. And unlearning is as important as learning, because, technology changes, processes change, products change, consumer behavior changes. And if you start thinking, no, consumers will want exactly the same thing that you delivered in the same manner 5 years ago, you will be obsolete. It will be exactly like one of those prehistoric animals who don't exist on this earth anymore. So learning, unlearning is a part of life. And so long as we are willing to understand that, appreciate that, and imbibe that in ourselves, I think that's what will make one successful. So with that, I'm just going to take a pause, and will be happy to take questions from any one of you, or and I'm going to hand this back to Papia.
Thanks, Kailash. One of the things that is also a realization which you have talking about is a kind of a shift, isn't it? That what is becoming most important is the skills that you bring onto the footing, right? And with gig, skills are becoming the only way you get an employment. You don't get an employment because you have a MBA degree or you have an engineering degree. You are actually whether you can do this work or you can't do this work, right? So with the skills becoming important, and so one has to really go by how do I build that skill. So like if you are passionate about tourism, then you will have to look at how do I build the necessary knowledge and skills that are required for tourism. Just having a particular set of things are not going to really help us, kind of. So skill development becomes integral part of a growth or a learning journey. And even the fact that the people with 40 plus years of age find it difficult, right? I am finding that to get a job, I am seeing that more and more people 40 plus are now investing into learning the new set of skills, so that they can completely move their careers and start almost from scratch, because it's the skills that matter. One of the reasons that why they struggle to find a job in first place, or a different job in first place, because the learning somehow starts tapering down as one moves up and up in the hierarchy, right? If the person is ready to make a change, or person is ready to continue the learning process, one of the things that we talk about leaders, a very important part is a leader is a continuous learner, right? And that is how you are taking up new jobs, because even if when you're moving up, you are actually taking new jobs, and it requires you to learn, invest in your learning and getting the growth up, right? And that's a very, very important factor that comes in. So Kailash, what has been your experience with the skills? Because what we are hearing now is experience doesn't matter. People in 20s are becoming head of sales, head of marketing, running the, so, but there. So, and so about this shift, because this is also an important part of the gig economy, right? So
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, let's just take real life examples, Papia. Ratan Tata learns being digitally savvy from a under 25-year-old person.
because
Yeah.
they're the best people to teach.
So who's the student and who's the master? Yeah. So here the teacher is a person who's under 25, and the student is Ratan Tata, who all of us would not argue in terms of the level of knowledge, expertise, and entrepreneurship and his brain. but he also believes that, he needs to learn from the person who's able to teach. So I think if we let our egos get in our way, and I would just differentiate a little bit in terms of experience. Experience is what you have done till now and gained an expertise in it. And skills can be something completely independent, because those skill sets, and you will need to go and uh, get that information or knowledge from some source. So it could be a source which is online, it could be a source which is you're going to somebody to learn, or it could be a source which is a collective set of people coming and in our industry. We live every day because we are dependent on the markets, and the markets change every day. And when the pandemic hit us, uh, I look at the pandemic as the biggest boon India has ever had. All the people who are saying that I will not adapt technology, I will not be digitally savvy, yeah, I will not do digital transactions, I will not transfer money online because it is unsafe. All of them adapted. So suddenly in our industry, the digital adoption, which was in the mid 40s to 50s, suddenly is now 95%, in terms of adoption. And why would that happen is because there is no choice. I'll give you a funnier example of this, Papya. Many years ago, about 20 years ago, my nephew went to the US to study. And his mother, my cousin sister, that is, uh, she had never used a computer in her work. She used to work in one of the government insurance companies as a junior officer, and it was all papers and files that they used to use. And she'd never touched a computer, never touched a keyboard in her whole life. And those days, there was no WhatsApp and there was no video call, etc., that you could do very quickly. And 4 months after her son had been to the US, she calls me one day on the landline and says that, listen, you have so many friends in the US, your college friends. So how do you communicate with them? So I said, I pick up the phone and I talk to them, although it was very costly those days. But to wish them on a birthday or something like that, I would pick up a phone. And she actually chided me and say, see, you're not using technology. I use XYZ system and it is actually free and it is on the internet. And how come you don't know about this? And I said, sorry, what are you saying? You use this? So she said, yes, I do. I said, but you didn't even know where the letter C was on a computer keyboard. Forget about, you know, anything else about a computer. She said, no, but now my son is gone. I can't afford to spend so much money every day. So she upskilled herself. And that was, at the age of 55. So the reason I share this story is it's not age that doesn't matter at all. It's your personal mindset which matters when it comes to learning something new and upgrading your own skills. You can upgrade your skills at age 22 and you can upgrade your skills at age 80 plus, like Ratan Tata is doing.
Yeah, thanks, Kailash. And also, the change that I'm seeing is the work is also for satisfaction, and people are not restricting. So I was in Pune, you have quite a booming, tech industry, for example. And I was really surprised when I moved over here. And for my son, I was looking at some coaching, like karate and robotics and all those kind of things. And so when I looked for a karate, there is this person came in and said, I'm very good communicator, very, very good communicator. And I was like, how come generally what you're expecting a karate teacher to have? That guy said, oh, he's working with one of the very big organizations in technology. He's a IT engineer and has worked and is also a black belt. So every Saturday, Sunday, he actually gets the pleasure of teaching the kids. And I was like, but you are tired, why would you, Saturday, Sunday is for fun. He said, this is what is fun for me. And I thought that he's one of the examples, one of the guys that are doing it. But then when I look at my society and look at the people who are teaching Zumba part-time, but they are not actually they are not completely dependent on Zumba. They are doing something else, but they're also teaching Zumba because they love to teach, kind of a thing. There are engineers teaching chess nowadays. That is because chess is quite an in thing after Indian rise, like some of the grandmasters coming are the youngest grandmasters. So I also find that we are not restricted to one employment or a job. And that's the shift again, that you take a pleasure of working, and gig applies that, right? Because it gives you an opportunity to work on 2-3 different projects, 2-3 different kinds of projects, and just looking at it and saying that what gives me maximum satisfaction.
I completely agree with you. I think the world is changing fast, and it's really up to each one of us to keep pace with the change, and that's going to be the most exciting times going ahead.
Yeah. So I am not got any questions on the chat. I'm wondering whether you would be asking your questions on the screen.
Ma'am, thank you so much, first of all, sir and ma'am both, for an informative session. Our students are here physically and they are really eager to ask their questions. So shall we take them?
Yes, please.
Good morning, ma'am, and good morning, sir. Firstly, thank you very much for that wonderful panel discussion. Gig economy is a relatively new topic, and we are really learning more about it every single day. And you brought a lot of great points to the floor, and I wanted to raise a question on one of those. Especially when Kailash sir mentioned that the bottom of the pyramid is exactly where we need to focus on, because some people are doing great work, and they are the ones who will soon be joining the digital race as well. So, sir, my question is actually, India as a country does have a huge digital skill gap, as well as there is a huge digital divide when you talk about urban and rural populations. And while with the onset of digitalization, Industry 4.0, and even the IoT 5G networks improving in their coverage, there is an inherent skill gap which is probably creating a resistance to change. So, sir, my question is, will moving forward rural populations be included in the gig economy, or will it lag and mostly be just a minority? Yes, sir.
So sure, I'll give my answer and then possibly hand it over to Papi after this. But I don't share the view that the rural population is lagging behind. Okay. So, Unilever quite some time back had a program called Kaan Khajua, wherein they had a radio channel which used to play the popular local songs. Okay. And the farmers used to listen to this on their transistors. And in between those songs, they would talk about the right way to cultivate farms, the seeds, the fertilizers, the various other things that are there. So, rural India actually is very adaptive to change much more than urban India. Okay. And much more than the people who have grown up a little uh, comfortable. Okay. Because what happens is when you grow up in comfort, you are happy. You don't need to learn because everything is there available for you. Whereas in the rural area, they know that they need to strive and do much more. So their adaptation to using technology, shopping online, is pretty significant. Obviously, it is at a younger age, not at the 40 plus crowd today. And that's where the education becomes important, where their children are either teaching them. So today, the consumption of movies, the consumption of series, web series, the consumption of various kinds of educative information, which is being done on the mobile phone because technology has become so cheap. In a few rupees per month or a few rupees per annum, you get everything free. Uh, Everyone is starting to move towards using technology in some way or the other. It may not necessarily be for transactions per se, but it is also for consumption. And consumption is also an integral part of the economy. Somebody is consuming, which means somebody else on the other side is earning some revenue. So don't be under the assumption that rural is not already participating. I think they're participating in significant manner. Uh, can it go much higher? The answer is yes. Are people wanting to learn themselves? The answer is yes. And I think you will see the urban-rural divide, which you were talking about, the gap come down significantly over the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah,
Thank
completely
you.
agree with you, Kailas. And we also see, in the sense, you're so right about them learning very, very fast of what is required. So they might not go ahead and learn everything that is there under the sun, or they might not approach it from the point of view learning a particular technical skill. But when it comes to adoption, whether it is a payment gateway, or there is a money transfer, or there is watching entertainment or a knowledge channels, whatever knowledge they require on the digital handsets. So all that, we find the adaptation to be very, very fast. To my surprise, like one of the big surprises in my life was when I had joined Airtel and I was going through induction. And in the induction, I was taken to one of the interiors of UP for as a part of my induction to understand it. And over there, I will find that I saw that, and they took me to a village which had the maximum consumption of 4G. And 4G was just launched in 2016, right? And maximum consumption of 4G. So I was like, what do they use 4G for? And coming from management background and limited ground level thinking, I was like, wow, the education is happening, the 4G is fulfilling its promise, kind of a thing. When we went, we found this whole, there were people sitting in circle. Okay. And everybody had a phone in hand, and they were logged into 4G network, and they actually were watching cricket and putting the bets. So it was completely betting going on over there, watching it. And I was like surprised, they were like, they looked like very, very rural and rustic, and how much, and they were able to put their bets online and going, and they're sitting in circle discussing it out themselves and putting it, and that's a kind of a moment. So whenever people feel that they need, they learn it, and they learn it the fastest. So even in rural, my experience across have been that there is no problem of learning, but there is a gap that comes in terms of when we talk about the skill sets, like a tech skill sets, IT skill sets. So user skill set they have, but when it comes to IT, because there are the limited number of colleges or schools or institutions that are teaching it, so there might be a gap over there. But in terms of a usage, we find that they are very good to picking it up. And then common service centers that are around now across India, in the villages, they also help people to use those systems and processes to access the government acts, to access, fill in all the forms that are required, or get the subsidies, or do all the kind of things. So the common service centers have also helped in building that kind of a knowledge that is required. Hope we answered your question.
Yes, ma'am, surely. Thank you very much, ma'am, and thank you, sir.
Ma'am, we have another question.
Yeah.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
So my question is for Kailash, sir. Sir, as you know that financial service industry is changing rapidly nowadays due to advent of the digitalization and crypto and NFTs. A lot of new concepts are coming. So how we as a student should prepare ourselves for the future work opportunities in the financial service industry?
It's read, read, and read, which is learn, learn, and learn. That's as simple as that. So if you personally ask me a few questions on NFTs and crypto, I'll be the wrong person to ask. Even I'm learning. It's so new to me. Even I'm not able to understand the entire thing. The first thing is acknowledging the fact that you don't know everything in this world. Okay, you need to do that because nobody knows everything in this world. There's no you should not be ashamed of the fact that you don't know everything in this world. So I am talking to a lot of people who are doing stuff on crypto and NFT just to gain knowledge and understand what this is all about. But why I personally love the financial services world is, like I said, it's a everyday evolving industry. So unless and until you don't learn every day, which keeps your mind refreshed and young, that's what helps this industry grow. and opportunities are dime a dozen across both assets and liabilities, across investments and savings. So it's there spread across the length and breadth of the country. And financial services is the backbone of any growing economy. If an economy is growing, the financial services sector does grow. So clearly, opportunities are dime a dozen in that area. So, which city do you belong to? Let me ask you that question.
Sir, I belong to the city of Agra, Uttar Pradesh.
Agra. So just imagine how many people in Agra, yeah, are literate from a point of view of understanding which is the right place to invest. And if you then make that your USP, as I will learn and teach people the right things of how to invest for their long term, for their short term, for their medium term, you can actually build a career in that. So that's what I meant. So every small town or big town has those opportunities.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir, for your
Do we have another question with us? Yes.
So good morning and thank you for being with us.
You will need to keep the mic a little closer. We are not able to hear you. Yeah.
Is it audible, sir, now?
Yes.
So my question is to Kailash, sir. As India has only 27% financial literacy rate right now, and being a CEO of mutual fund, what is your take on it? And
Okay.
sir,
So that's something I'm learning now. 27% financial literacy rate. I was not aware of that at least. Okay. But I can only tell you one thing. It's like that story which all of us have heard in our MBA. You know, when you go to Africa, there was this two salesmen who went to Africa, shoe salesman. One of them saw that nobody was wearing shoes. The other one saw uh, nobody was wearing shoes. One guy comes and says, there is no market, nobody wears shoes. The other guy comes and says, oh, there's such a phenomenal market, nobody wears shoes, so we can sell shoes to everybody. Yeah. So if it's as low as 27%, look at the scope we all have. At least I know that till I retire or I eventually pass on to some other afterlife, yeah, there is enough and more to do and enough and more to teach and make that 27% to maybe 30, 40, 50, 60% in terms of literacy. So always look at the positive side of things. If the numbers are too low, there is a huge scope which you can go and be a part of and create that world. And you should be happy if you are able to do 100 families and make them financially literate. So if each one of us who's financially literate adopts a slogan saying, make 100 families literate, you can just imagine the exponential growth that India can have in terms of financial literacy.
yes, thank you, sir.
Looks like we have another question for you.
Uh, Good morning, sir and ma'am. Thank you so much for being there with us. So my question is, since remote work is opening interesting career opportunities, and world is now becoming one marketplace, so should we look at working for overseas while working from home?
Papia, you want to take that?
Okay. What you should look at is what you want to work on, and let the location not be a constraint for you to think of, So if there are opportunities available in India and they suit your requirement, go for it. If there are opportunities available elsewhere and they meet your kind of a purpose and passion, then go for it. So don't make I would say my personal suggestion will not be that I have to work for a project which is based in US, right?
Yes.
Sitting at my hometown. Because if you are not getting that changes, if you are not getting the difference in experience of being in that location, then you know how much more fun it is just sitting at home and working on it, right?
Yes.
But if you are working on remote, go by what kind of work you really want to do, where your learning will be maximum, what you will be able to showcase in your resume and will give you better projects, right? Or look at if you are passionate about travel, then look at the opportunities that allows you to travel. There is another thing is about being a digital nomad, where you actually travel irrespective of where you work, right? And you go into different countries and you work from there, kind of. So the design has to be around your own purpose and goal, that what you're expecting from the career, and the things will work out, right? So, like for me personally, like travel is a very important part of my life. I really, really want to travel, right? So I consider this being a digital nomad as the best option that are there. But after looking at everything, what I do is I work for 10 weeks, take a 2 weeks break and travel during 2 weeks. The pandemic has restricted it, but my working style has been 10 weeks of working and 2 weeks of leave. And as I said, I learned my own consulting now. It gives me that flexibility to take the breaks that I want. So you can design your work around it, but go by your passion.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am.
I think all the students who are there, you should go by the passion is a very important thing. Everybody should follow the passion.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, sirs. Thanks for coming here. And your words were so enlightening and insightful. I have one question for you, ma'am. Since you have been doing a lot of study on future of work, from our perspective, what should we look for a career in the changing scenario? Is gig work is a good opportunity for student like us, ma'am?
If flexibility is very important for you, then gig is a very good option, because it depends, as again I will go back, it depends upon what are you looking for from the work, right? Yes, so if you are looking for from the work, so across the globe we see this whole rise of freelancers, right? The freelancers are the people who are looking at flexibility, basically having a flexibility to do things at our own pace, do things in our own style, do things in the way that we wanted them to be done, right? So yes, if flexibility is very important, then gig is a good choice, kind of a thing, right? Sometimes it can be that the kind of projects that you want to work on, right? Many a times those projects are not available for in first 3-4 years of the career, because when you are beginning in a traditional setup or a traditional org structure where you will begin even with what the best of the degrees, there will be a kind of a work that will be associated with it. If you're not interested in that kind of a work and you want to make a very different kind of a start where it is expertise led, then gig becomes an option that you can look at. But my personal suggestion will be, don't go by whether it is traditional or a gig, go by what you really want to do.
Yes, ma'am. Any other question?
I guess we have one more question.
Oh, a very good morning, sir and ma'am. So I personally feel that when we talk about Generation Z, they're more interested in the work than as they compare to the job. Like they want work satisfaction. So I am personally interested in financial services. So what do you think, what is the opportunities for gig workers in financial services? And if there are any earning potentials? Because if you talk about financial services, they usually like one job and you have to continue with that. So what are the opportunities when you look at as for gig workers in the same field?
Thanks for that question. May I know which city you belong to?
Sir, I'm from Delhi.
You're from Delhi, okay. So let me give you some statistics, okay? In India, we have a huge population, but let's just understand that we'll take 30 or 40 million or 30 crores or 40 crores. Let me put 300 million or 400 million people who would have some level of income, which means they have affordability to have some surplus to invest for the future. If that is the case, today we have just about 2 lakh people who service these individuals in terms of giving them the right kind of advice to make a financial well-being for themselves in the future. So while they consult their friends, relatives, family, it's not really professional. Today, if you want to file tax, technically you can go to the IT portal and file your own tax. But most of us choose to go to a chartered accountant to file a tax. Similarly, there are various other functions where you go to a professional to file or learn something so that you can fulfill the service requirement out there. Distribution or advice is one such function which today, unfortunately, like I said, that's the reason I don't like the word agent, because it kind of puts the person in a very different perspective and doesn't give the true sense of what that person is doing to you. That person actually helps an individual, a family, to manage their money better, not just for the current requirements, but for the future needs and also for emergency situations. Now, if you are looking at gig and you want to be independent and not really do a job in a particular company, starting young, learning or getting into banking or getting into financial services, getting into investment advisory functions, learning the ropes, and after 5 years of good experience, setting up your own uh, uh, firm to help neighbors, friends, relatives, and others manage their money can be a fantastic opportunity. And this is again irrespective of the location. Today, because of technology, you can have clients in Delhi, but you can have clients not just in India, but anywhere in the world. So you can really give them the right kind of advice with a lot of interaction through video and helping them understand what is happening for the betterment of them. So is there opportunity? There's massive opportunity. Would you like to learn in the initial 4, 5, 6 years before you step out on your own? That's each one has to decide their own choice, but that would be ideal because you get some good experience. And then, people do believe that they can talk to someone who has some good experience in terms of managing money for others. So surely there are opportunities. I think opportunities exist in insurance companies, mutual fund companies, banks, investment banking firms across the length and breadth of financial services.
Thank you, sir.
Do we have any other questions? Yes, we have.
First of all, good morning, sir. Good morning, ma'am. My question is for you, Papa, ma'am. Women today, despite the society is changing, but we still cannot change the fact that we are living in a patriarchal society. So what do you think are the opportunities for women in gig economy? Can they provide the flexibility to women that they want in their work? Because we women have that responsibility on us to look, even if we are working professionals, to look, to give time to our personal lives as well. So do you feel that gig economy can provide us that flexibility of work?
Actually, you have the answer built in your question in terms of so gig provides a beautiful opportunity of flexibility because that's what most of the women need. So if you one of the examples that I would take is the whole rise of cloud kitchens, right? And if you look at the cloud kitchens, almost 60-70% of them are run by women, when you look at. Similarly, when you have, you look at all the handicrafts that are sourced by Amazon, for example, when you look at the significant number of those businesses are run by women. Because then there is an opportunity to look at even the advisory role, the financial advisory role that Kailash has been talking about, right? My own experience in the insurance sector is that when women have come out, we find that women have started investment. Because one of the big shifts that women can actually bring in is supporting more women. So most of the places, financial planning, life insurance, everything is centered around the man of the house, right, taking the investment. But now there is this whole cadre of women coming in who are taking the family decisions on investment, right? Where is the investment coming? So more women coming as financial advisors will actually help creating not only the financial understanding for the people, but also bringing in more women to the, to the financial investments and others. So almost every field that we, even agri-tech, when you look at agri-tech, you will find that quite a few, like a very good inputs that are coming from this, the women coming in the workforce. So gig actually provides a lot of opportunities. And I have my colleague, responding Murli, who's saying that recent studies have suggested that women have taken to gig far more easily and naturally than to men. Their natural adaptability and elegance with which they switch role makes them a great candidate for gig. So I think, yeah, this is a big opportunities waiting for women to join.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your answer.
Good morning. This is Dr. Burhan. I'm actually the faculty here, and I thank both of you for joining us. Since my student asked this question, I couldn't resist asking an extension of this question. Although, I mean, traditionally we've been thinking about women, role of women, and then it's not the picture as we always like to see. We, as she rightly said, that we live in a patriarchal society where we have so many expectations from a woman. She comes home and we think that she would do everything. And then a lady working from home, which is what we generally like to see, a gig economy would give her the flexibility and agility. But then it could be the other way around, that when she is at home, will she be able to work? What is your thought on that?
No, actually, excellent point you have raised around it. So when so we did a very big study, not for the gig as a part of OneCube. We did a study where we were trying to understand the experience of remote working or experience of working from home for people in corporate sector. One of our expectation was, and we did find that women talking about saying that work from home will be, like, because the children are at home, so we can take care of the family. But the point that you are talking about was so relevant. So verbatim, if you have to quote a couple of them, they said that actually my husband has taken the living room for all his calls and all. It is booked like his office, so I have to take the call from kitchen. So she is attending her meetings on the laptop or a phone, but she has to do it from kitchen because that's the only place. Other one is a bedroom where kids are there, right? The second thing we said, when I was going to office, at least, there were people taking responsibility of my kids when I was in office, or a housework when I was in office. But now that I am home, everything is expected out of me, and how do I manage work and the home? And they were actually willing, can we have at least 2 days of hybrid working where we come to office so that we get a break, because it's almost very, very tiring, managing both home and office from home. And that, the point. What came as an important factor is we cannot actually talk about all women having the same piece. And even at work, it's the same experiences, the same. So women, as it is not one category, because women coming from different families, there might be families who are not really affluent, but there is a good support system at family, the mothers or mother-in-laws or somebody at a family taking care of the family, and they are actually helping the women go and work, and it is perfectly accepted. So there is a full set of such families coming in where it is expected that both of them will be earning. There are also families where you have a caretaking responsibility for old or somebody who's not very well. And we have seen that men shouldering that responsibility and saying, I will take that responsibility, and we will have equal responsibilities that are coming. The women's role over there is very, very different. We have women who are very, very career focused now and say, we'll make it happen. Managing home is secondary, right? And they can afford help, different kind of a help that is coming in. So women cannot be, there are different categories that are coming in, and different categories have different experiences. And we also find that the social support system for women working, I would say, is evolving over the period of time. Families are becoming more important. Families are realizing that, one, if I'm just depending on my son to work and earn, it's not going to be enough. Our lifestyles will be different if both the people are earning. And if both the people are earning, then we need to provide that kind of a support system at home. So there are, it is more of learning from the experiences that are coming in, more of learning from the expectations. I think that men are also growing progressive. So when they are growing progressive, they are willing to provide that kind of a support. So it's a very early stages, but I would say that we are seeing some really good societal movement or a corporate movement to give that kind of a flexibility that women require. I think we need more women to come into the workforce to fight for the women.
Sure, sure. And we look forward to having you sometime in the campus also. Unfortunately, we couldn't have this summit this time in the campus. But as we never wanted to miss this summit this year. So we thought that at least we can have it online rather than saying no some questions. But since due to paucity of time, we may not be able to take many questions here. And I would just request the students also to consider the questions from the students who have joined or the people who have registered with us and have joined us online, because it has to be inclusive in many ways. Don't forget them. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to have you sometime in the campus. Thank you.
Thank you. Our pleasure. Thank
Dr.
you.
Burhan, can I ask one question?
Thank you so much.
Is it okay if I can ask one question to
Of
the
course,
panel?
of course, yes, of course, yes.
Okay, Dr. Burhan, this is Munish. I'm from Jivitam. Okay, we have done recently a survey among 7 IIMs. And one thing which stood out in that survey of around 1,200 first-year IIM students across country, recent surveys told us that 51% of the students want to become digital nomads. What means is they want to travel. They don't want to stick on to 9-to-5 jobs. They want to travel in India. They want to travel across the globe. And this new emerging concept of digital nomad is one of the things which most of the students are now trying to look at. And this is a very innovative and new concept which has come out from the remote work and the work from home option, which is now available. And most of the corporates like Jivitam is also offering the same opportunity to work from anywhere. So I just wanted to check with Papya and Kailash. Kailash is an avid traveler. I know him. Okay. And Papya has done amazing work on the future of work. Okay. So what are their views on these two opportunities is what I want to ask the panelists.
I'll go first, Kailash.
Yeah, please.
So for me, I think it again boils down to what's your priority. Okay. If travel is what you want, or experiencing different countries you want, and you want to work because it sponsors that experience. So work is just sponsoring that experience and giving you the money that is required for, then digital nomad is a brilliant kind of an option, right? The second can be that, you are keen traveler and you want to experience different countries, but at the same time you are particular about the kind of work that you want to do. Then you will have to keep on waiting for opportunities, and only if there is an opportunities available in this format where you can operate from anywhere, that you can pick up that option, because there are taxation norms, there are travel norms, Not every country gives it a visa. So Romania might give you a nomadic visa, but you want to travel to, let's say, Germany, right? So which countries give, and also you will have to study. So where your focus becomes searching for the opportunities that are in line with what you want to do, and then seeing whether it builds in work from anywhere, so you can travel and you can take the visa as a tourist visa or something and travel, or nomadic visa and travel. The third is that you are very, very focused on what's the role, what's the job that you want to do, and in that case, you will first look at the job, and then around that create what are the possibilities for me to travel, right? And it can come in different forms. Like I think I traveled quite a bit. Kailash, you have traveled a lot and you have not been on nomadic visa, that I can say, right? But you have traveled. You have made it a point to travel. Because I am guessing that for both of us, first of all, that opportunity was not available. And second, the work became a central point. So we designed the life around the work. So all three options are available to you. You guys are lucky ones with a lot of options. And you will pick and choose based on, what is it that is priority for you.
So I think I'm fully for a nomadic way of working. I think that will happen in the future. It is the way to go. But the only thing is that when you are traveling and working, uh, don't immerse yourself watching Netflix or Amazon sitting inside a room. Immerse yourself by meeting people, going, seeing the people, understanding the culture, and that really brings about more learning for you. I can give you a second example because I talked about one of my ex-colleagues having started a jungle safari tourism company. I have another colleague who used to love to travel a lot, and now she has actually started her own travel company, which gives different experience, which means they do campsites in the rivers in Uttarakhand and Himachal, things like that, which not a traditional tourism operator would give. So what people have started doing is, while they are traveling, while they are doing this work and traveling and seeing the world, they're learning and they're actually making that into their profession. So that's also an option which I see will happen to many, many more people, because you can't just go and stay in the Taj or the Oberoi or some three-star hotel. There are lots of interesting places to stay wherein you're with nature and you're disconnected from the madness that the world has become. So there's a lot to learn, and being a nomadic worker will only enrich your life. And just things are, you invited us to the campus. I am a great fan of JNK. I have more than 10 visits to JNK. The last visit was early August. So obviously I'll take up the invitation as and when. Always happy to visit JNK.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir and ma'am, for such an enlightening discussion and for answering all these questions very patiently. I'm sure our listeners have gained a profound understanding through the session. We heartily thank you for your benign presence in the summit, and also looking forward to interacting with you, hopefully in the physical mode at our campus sometime. So thank you so much, sir and ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll have a 5 minutes break and we'll start at sharp 11:30 for our next session.
ऑन कहाँ से होगा?
all the students could fully join.